It looks like big books are back on the menu, boys. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another monthly TBR, this time for November of 2024. Coming up on the close of the year. I can't believe how fast 2024 has went by. So yes, a sabbatical on big books has ended. We're going to kind of talk about why, as well as some other things going on this month. You know, I have been taking that little detour lately, and I said I'm going to take a break. After Shogun, I felt like I had a bit of a book hangover, so I said no more big books for a little bit, and I want to kind of try some more than just fantasy. So I made sure I added, some sci-fi, some horror, some historical fiction, all those things per month, where I was doing one of each. But I'm kind of putting an end to that now because honestly, guys, I'm a fantasy first reader. So telling me I was going to read one fantasy book, 12 fantasy books a year, yeah, that was never going to fly for long. But I kind of felt like it helped me get out of that funk I was in a little bit. So I think it's one of those things you can have a book that's so great, because Shogun is up for my book of the year. They can't just give you a hangover so bad where you're like, okay, I need to take a break from anything even close to similar for a while. So I'm glad that I did it, because it did make me discover a lot more, some science fiction stories I've been putting off. And it made me pick up some horror authors I've been wanting to check out. And, they're much smaller. They're not usually series, or usually, under 400 pages or so. And for a fantasy fan, that is a nice little break here. So we're going to get into what I'm planning to read this month. I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag here. I would be stunned if I'm able to get all these in November, because some of them are quite hefty. Let's kick it off here, guys, with the conclusion of the Bloodsworn trilogy. This is Fury of the Gods by Mr. John Gwynne. Now, I want to tell you guys how excited I am for this. I think you just kind of look at where John Gwynne stands in my fantasy rankings right now. Let's take a look at three of my favorite fantasy authors right now. Let's look at John Gwynne. Let's look at Joe Abercrombie. Let's look at Brandon Sanderson, who coincidentally all have books coming out in the fourth quarter of 2024. But say I went to a bookstore and all three of them had a new release on the same day. Which one am I reaching for first? That's a tough decision. So that tells you where John Gwynne is kind of in my hierarchy right now, because this guy is 9 for 9 for me so far. I love The Faithful and the Fallen. I love Bloodsworn. I love Blood and Bone. The guy just does not miss, and I expect this to be a number 10. Not many authors are ever going to be a perfect 10 out of 10 for me, but I think John's going to do it here. So very excited for this. Been a little bit, I'm glad. I hope it does have a recap at the beginning. I've heard it does have a recap at the beginning, but because it's been a bit since I read book number 2. But I think this actually comes out on Tuesday. So you guys might actually get a chance to read it before I did. I never really schedule being able to get an arc, because I just never know if it's going to happen. So I didn't actually plan to do this. So that's why I'm making it the first thing I do after spooky season does end here. But guys, Bloodsworn trilogy coming to a close. What is Fury of the Gods about? Well, the final battle for the fate of Vigrid approaches. Varg has overcome the trials of his past and become an accepted member of the Bloodsworn. But now he and his newfound comrades face their biggest challenge yet: slaying a dragon. Elvar is struggling to consolidate her power in ℚ𝕗𝕗𝕗, where she faces threats from within and without. As she fights to assert her authority and readiness for the coming conflict, she faces a surely insurmountable task: reining in the ferocity of a wolf god. Bior and his warband make their way north, eager for blood, as Gudvar pursues a mission of his own, hoping to win Ligrifa's favor and further his own ambitions. All paths lead to ℚ𝕗𝕗𝕗, where the lines are being drawn for the final battle, a titanic clash that will shake the foundations of the world and bear witness to the true fury of the gods. I got to just add 3 for 3 in this series with these covers. John is he's just everything you want in a fantasy author, I think. He's got great characters, he's got great storyline, and he's got amazing fantasy covers. The guy is just, he's one of the best. He is one of the best in the business right now. If you haven't picked up John Gwynne at this point, you got to, because old Vicious Pen, he'll make you feel certain things. Vicious Pen, I call him, because he'll be like, oh, hey, you like that character right there? Oh, sorry about that. That's just the way that he is. John makes you give a damn about his characters, and then he does very unruly things to him, because he's just a mean man. But God bless him. God bless him. I talked about my favorite fantasy authors there, and anytime I get an opportunity to read 2/3 of those back to back, it's going to be a good time, guys. So it'll be an arc I actually do read a little early this time. This is going to be The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I'm so excited that I was actually one of the lucky ones who was able to get the uncorrected galley of this a little early. Of course, I talked to Patrick, who really hyped this book up, and basically I think he set my expectations. Don't go into it expecting the first law. I think that's something that really made the Shattered Sea not a fun experience for me. but I've also been told, it's not like Shatter Sea. It's still very much the R-rated fantasy that the First Law is. It's just don't go into it expecting First Law. And I wouldn't do that. But as long as it's still got like that same touch, it's got Joe's signature character work, I think it's going to be something great. He's got some great characters, it sounds like, coming up in this. And I've actually proofread this a little bit because I don't want to give away anything about what some of these storylines are here, or some of these characters, because it sounds like the most insane D&D campaign I've ever read, honestly, with some of the other characters here. So you can find out a little bit about the cast if you dig a little bit, but just kind of keeping it on the DL here. I'm not going to give you anything here because I want you guys, because I've already gotten a lot of people are upset that some reviewers got the copy of this so early, when you can't even get the book for like another 7-8 months. And I understand that, but I think I got Empire of the Damned about as early as that, and I didn't spoil anything for you. So I think I'll tell you, hey, is it that or is it that? I think that's what I'll keep it to until the release date does come rolling around. But I'm very excited about this, as you should be. So what is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie about? Well, holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city, where he is certain accommodation and a grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters, and the mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from all of them in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side. Now, the most interesting thing that I think I've heard about this is it's kind of like alternate Earth. Like there are real world implications or real locations from this, but obviously we're dealing with monsters and elves and things like that. So it sounds like an interesting take. I'm going to trust Joe he's going to make it all make sense, but honestly, I think that makes it sound even crazier, and I'm looking very much forward to this one. It was very hard for me to stick to my spooky season schedule when that did show up in my email. So very excited. That's the most anticipated book of 2025 right there, and getting to read it early. Never am ever going to feel anything but blessed for having the opportunity for do things like that. To be able to read your favorite fantasy author a little earlier than release date, that's always going to be just like Christmas in June. I can't wait for it, guys. It's going to be super, super exciting. Something I talked about recently was, again, with big books. It was just something I needed to take a break from. That's why I still haven't read Sun Eater 6. And Christopher, he's cool. He understands. We talked about it when he was here in town. But something I said I did want to kind of get back into was Ken Follett. Ken Follett is an author who wrote one of my favorite books of all time. I think Pillars of the Earth is a top 20 book ever. That's easily. I would easily put it in the top 20 books ever. It's just an amazing story. And I will constantly say, I think Ken Follett's one of the best writers ever. And I read one book for him. And the thing is like the book's big enough that I feel like maybe it constitutes actually getting that ranking, because it is actually a massive, massive book. But I've always said I wanted to continue with him, and I feel like I'm always putting it off. And it feels weird to put it in a month like this, because I've got several other, not short books, but, I'm tired of always putting it off. I always put these off because of the sheer size of these books. But I wanted to continue with Kingsbridge. That's why I'll be starting A World Without End. Now this, we watched the miniseries, my wife and I did. I got on Blu-ray years ago, and we just decided to watch it on a whim about a month ago. We loved it. We blew right through it. And I said, you know what? I need to finally read that, I think. And it's like, this is just monstrous. It's like, does Ken Follett write any short books? What is it, 1,265 pages. That should be fun. That's what's got me saying, if I get all 3 of these books in this month, that'll be amazing. If I get this 4th book I have planned, that'll be even more spectacular. But again, Ken Follett, I've got tons of books by the guy, and I need to start actually reading some of them. For a lot of people I've talked to, some of my patrons even, they actually read World Without End right after they read Pillars of the Earth. They said it's as good, if not better, than Pillars of the Earth. And that's true. Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. Now, I watched the miniseries, so I kind of know what the story is, and I'm very excited about that. But anytime you're dealing with the Black Plague, it's going to be something that's going to be, the body count will be significantly higher than Pillars of the Earth, which had a pretty high body count. And putting your characters through the ringer is something that Ken Follett just seems to be the best at, for sure. Because when we're dealing with history, well, I always say there's nothing more grimdark than actual human history. This is about 200 years after Pillars of the Earth. So what is World Without End about? Well, in the town of Kingsbridge, 2 centuries after the townspeople finished building an exquisite Gothic cathedral, the Priory are again at the center of a web of love and hate, greed and pride, and ambition and revenge. The men and women of Kingsbridge find themselves at a crossroads of new ideas about medicine, commerce, architecture, and justice. In a world where proponents of the old ways fiercely battle those with progressive minds, they are faced with the greatest natural disaster ever to strike the human race, the Black Death. So yes, obviously one of the lowest points in human history during the plague, and something that's been written about quite a few times, but getting it more with a historical touch here from Mr. Follett should be very exciting. I know a lot of people give his books crap, be like, it's mostly snobs who are like, oh, historical fiction, because it didn't happen. And I'm like, that's why it's called historical fiction, and not like a history book. With this, I think what is interesting about a lot of historical fiction for me is like going down that rabbit hole of just exploring some of these things that they're talking about and finding out what the actual human history is. That's something that's very fun. So a lot of stuff after we watched that miniseries, I was looking up a lot of these, the parts of the monarchy and things like that. It was very, very cool to see. But yeah, I'm expecting this to be a 5-star banger. Not even close. I would say right now, even with the Joe Abercrombie book, even with the new John Gwynne book, this might be the most excited that I am, just because I think Pillars of the Earth, I've just put it up on such a pedestal all these years because I've adored that book since high school, and just actually going back to that not really that time period, because again, it is 200 years later with a whole new cast. But I just get the feeling this one's just gonna really click with me, and I'm super excited to do it. And hey, if you got room for a 1,300-page book and you want to join me, I'd love to have you. The last one here, like I said, I'm pretty sure this will probably go into December, but that's okay. I think what I said was I wanted to finish this trilogy before the end of the year, and of course, this is going to be The Thousandfold Thought by R. Scott Baker. It's book 3 in Prince of Nothing. I'm actually reading The Warrior Prophet right now. And I think you just got to understand that once Baker's world just kind of gets its hooks in you, it's hard to let go. And so I was like, I regretted actually scheduling a month in between books 1 and 2, because I love The Darkness Comes Before. It's up there for my book of the year. It's in that consideration. And I'm thinking Warrior Prophet will probably be up there by the time I get to the end of it. But with this, yeah, I just want to make sure I finish the Prince of Nothing side of it. Now, the Aspect Emperor, that's just going to kind of see where I stand when I finish this trilogy, see where I stand. I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, so I'm not really concerned about it. That's just a vibe I'm getting right now, because I've said it feels like the perfect marriage of Dune and Lord of the Rings set across the backdrop of actual human history with the Crusades. And again, nothing's more brutal than the Crusades, obviously, in human history. But I'm super excited about this. I think that this series is just going to leave such a lasting impression on me, and I get to visit, my new favorite fantasy world, John Gwynne, Joe Abercrombie, and of course Ken Follett. This is just a stacked month, man. It's just going to be amazing. But as for The Thousandfold Thought, again, I proofread these guys when I talk about sequels on here. I'm not going to ruin anything for you. This is very vague, so don't worry about it. But The Thousandfold Thoughts, what is it about? Well, as the Holy War makes the final march of its long journey toward the holy city of ℕ𝕤𝕤, the path appears clear and righteous as internal tensions subside. Certain kernels of knowledge held as truth begin to fold as twisted reveals take place. The emergence of ℚ𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤 as a powerful figure during the war, and the discovery of the consult are manipulating events to bring back the No God. And again, very vague, but honestly, the description on the back of the book is very vague. And if you haven't read this, none of these words really make sense. Like, I think when I first read it, when I first read the description to you guys, when I was doing The Darkness Because of Horror, I couldn't say ℚ𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤. So I'm very excited about being able to pronounce a lot of these names now. Zarias, Compass, ℚ𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤, Naor, Siotha. I'm excited about this. I can say these names now, and these are characters I feel very, very attached to. And I'm pretty sure from all the things I've heard about this, it's not going to end pretty. Obviously, you're dealing with a holy war. Not everyone's going to make it through that. But it's such a compelling series. Not going to be for everyone, I'll say about that. But something I am kind of curious about is what the completion rate is on this series. Because when I was reading The Darkest Comes Before, I was getting a ton of feedback on Twitter, on my Discord. And I'm not getting that much for Warrior Prophet. So I don't know, maybe it's just like, timing. I don't need anybody to hold my hand for it. I'm just not getting very much feedback like I did with The Darkest Comes Before. So I'm wondering if this is like Malazan, where a lot of people will start Guardians of the Moon and they kind of trail off in Dead House Gates and they usually just tap out. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to some of the Second Apocalypse people and see what is the completion rate for this trilogy. Is it something where there's a very high tap out rate, or do people finish it? But again, like I said, I'm only 5 chapters into Warrior Prophet as of this recording, so maybe that's why I just haven't gotten a ton of feedback yet. But I don't know. It's a very interesting community, and they're all very excited for you to start, and they don't spoil anything for you. And that's something that I do appreciate. So again, I'll be stunned if I get all these in November. But again, as with all things reading, guys, where's the fire? I mean, I like to stay on a schedule, sure. But, when I'm going to commit to doing 4 books that it doesn't look like any of them are going to be really quick reads, I mean, 3 fantasy books and a Ken Follett book that is, the size of the phone book. Hey, again, these are the things that happen. And look, in November, I do, a lot of time off because you work in corporate America. So of course we get time off for the holidays. I think I'm getting the week after Thanksgiving off. So maybe I'll have some more time to read as I'm kind of running down the end stretch of the month. We'll see. But again, it's no harm, no foul, guys. If we don't get these books done all in one month, it's fine. But hey, I would love for you to join me for some of them. I know that they are. One of them is obviously one book you can't get yet, but you can get Fear of the Gods here pretty soon if you haven't read any of the Bloodsworn. Perfect time to start, guys, because you won't have to wait like we did between books 2 and 3, that long wait. So you can get that actual series completed here and just kind of read them in a row. And I would highly recommend it. So guys, that's what I plan to read in November. What do you got in the plans? Why don't you drop in the comments, guys, and let me know. Let me know if you can join me for any of these. I would love to have you. Jump on over to the Discord. We'd love to discuss them with you. And I will talk to you down below.